Yes, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com for another edition of our daily drop. And we're going to talk about, the futures. And this is the thing that happens as soon as the season ends, AJ, because Carolina's season ended on Friday night, losing Ole Miss. The portal opens up on Monday. I mean, there will be teams still playing and the portal's opened up. This is the crazy world of college basketball that we live in. But when a team season ends now in college basketball, no matter what level you're at, everybody starts talking about what is the roster going to look like next season. And everybody starts thinking about who is Carolina going to add. We're not going to talk about that yet, but we're just going to focus on the players Carolina have right now and maybe some of the conversations that you had in the locker room after the game. I know one guy in particular, AJ, that you were there, and you can see this interview on our YouTube channel. We'll start with him. Seth Trimble, I know he's a guy a lot of people have talked about. He came out after the game when asked about it and essentially said, absolutely, I want to come back to this school. I'm a Tar Heel. I know Ian Jackson was asked about it as well. So it is going to be a hot topic over the next few weeks for sure. But you were in the locker room afterwards, AJ. Just take us back there. And, did you have a chance to kind of talk with some of these players about what their future might be? I know really that close after a season-ending loss, it's hard to ask that question and get an honest answer because a lot of these guys haven't thought about it. But take us in that locker room and maybe into some of those conversations.
Well, as Elliot Cadeau responded when I asked him, he said, season ended 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, and I get that. We got to ask him.
And I chatted with him afterward. Yeah. He understood, I have to ask the question. And here's the thing. I was talking with somebody else. For most of my career, you only ask that question to a guy who could be a first-round pick and has eligibility remaining. That's the question that you ask, Tyler Hansbrough or you ask J.J. Redick, right? That's not the question that you generally ask role players who have 3 years of eligibility remaining. Mm-hmm. But that's the world we live in now, so you have to do it. It's not a fun question to ask, especially when they just lost in the NCAA tournament. But Seth, to start with him, since you brought him up first, he also acknowledged that this is a business and guys have decisions to make. They have to look at options, and they have to think about things like that now. They are professional athletes, and they need to be compensated. And a guy like him, I think North Carolina would be very wise to make every effort to bring him back. They need guys that play for this, especially when the coach preaches it so much. Mm-hmm. Got to have guys that play for this. If you lose a guy who swears by this, if you lose a guy who's in tears when they lose the ACC championship game last year to NC State like he was, and then when they lost Alabama in the Sweet 16 like he was, and then like he was today, look at the video, look closely.
Oh, yeah.
He was emotional. You can't. And then a guy who's your best defensive player, a guy who's electrifying in the open court, a guy who's made himself a pretty solid offensive player, and he can get a lot better. He could be your dude next year. He could be your leader. He could be a fanny smacker. He could play for all the things that matter and have always mattered in that program and things that are important to Hubert. So they got to do everything in their power to keep him. And maybe because of that, they make other decisions with other people. We don't know. Mm-hmm. They got to make every effort to keep Drake Powell. He was asked also about his future, and he said that he's not really sure. He hadn't thought much about it, and he didn't kind of give me the vibe there was a ton to think about, to be honest with you. Ian, on the other hand, kind of gave me a little bit more of a vibe that we've thought all along is that he would be leaving because the whole first-round NBA draft pick thing, but I'm not sure he's projected in the first round anymore.
I don't think he is.
I asked him if the roller coaster part of the season, especially since his scoring binge stopped, how much that would play a role when he talks to people, because he did say, look, I got to talk to my people. I got to get some information. He said all the right things. But, we saw it up close. As this team got better, his minutes declined.
Yes.
Because there's not a whole lot of things he does real well yet. Now, he will one day probably do those things real well if he really wants to. He has the gifts, but the gifts are just one thing. You have to then harness that. You have to massage that and make it work for you. And Ian has a long way to go there. So I think he would be well served playing in college again next year, likely at North Carolina. Drake would too. Drake needs to get bigger. Drake needs to be a guy who takes more important shots. There were times today when the ball found him and he had to shoot it, and he didn't look super comfortable shooting it.
He took that three late that he missed.
It was uncomfortable. Yeah. It was a very uncomfortable looking shot.
Yeah.
He's got to become a comfortable guy taking that shot, and that will make him a lot of money, and it will better position him to stick around in the league when he goes there. So those are just my gut tells me that Drake will really evaluate things, get really good advice from people. I'm not saying Ian won. I just think that Ian came in thinking that it was 1 year and he was gone. He basically said that back in October. And he's been sort of an I'm him kind of guy, but he's been humbled. And I did ask him today if he's matured. I told him, I said, I've said this on the shows. I've sensed that he's matured a lot in the last couple of months because he's been humbled. And you can't go scoreless or play 8 minutes or whatever it is, or go 1 for 5 and say I'm him, and you're suddenly the 8th man. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. And he did acknowledge that he had a little bit of a different role this year than he's used to, and that role changed. It started out that way, then he became the leading scorer for a month, and then he dropped off. So it is interesting that his response to my question, how much will this season affect how you evaluate moving forward? I don't think it will. I think whatever decision he makes, it's going to be based on what the league tells him. Mm-hmm. It's not going to have anything to do with what he did today, last week, or the month before. It's going to all be about moving forward. Jalen Washington said he's just not thinking about it. The season just ended. He said he wants to think about his guys. Didn't want to go there with it. Elliot Cadeau, sort of the same thing. I mean, he did say the season ended 10 minutes ago.
I kind of like that response.
Well, when I was leaving the locker room, I kind of went to him. I said, I had to ask that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, but I had that. He said, it's okay. 6 other people asked me too. So
that's funny.
I'm trying to think of who else would have it. I was not around. I did not ask Ben Allen.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him. Yeah,
I didn't think about it because I wanted to get to Seth, and Seth and RJ had come back from the dais from the press conference, and we had limited time. So I asked Ben a couple questions, and then wanted to go talk to Seth because I had already talked to RJ for a while. Yeah, I want to make sure I got Seth.
I know you didn't. It's not someone that would be top of mind with how his season went, but even a guy like Cade Tyson, I mean, intriguing to see what happens there. You know,
Cade was sitting next to Ben when I was talking to Ben, and I thought about it, but I don't want to make that the first question.
I know what you mean, yeah.
And there was nothing else to ask him.
Yeah.
You got to have some respect for these guys, and we'll know soon enough with some of these guys. But I'm trying to think of who else I talked to about it. You think of anybody else?
Obviously, I think that's it. I mean, I'm thinking,
Jay went in the locker room because he was on crutches when he left. That's
RJ's done, so he doesn't count. I know you talked a little bit about. You had a good conversation with him, by the way. I thought that was a good interview when you talked to him for a little bit. But.
Yeah, and I had a few moments with him afterward. He's a really nice guy. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's a fine young man. He is really. We've watched him go from being a New York boy to a young man.
Yeah,
and a guy who has accomplished so much.
Oh, so much.
History won't view him the way maybe history should because there wasn't a lot around him as much as some other players. And I don't know how good he is as far as Carolina lore goes, but he's pretty damn good. You put those numbers up. He's won some big games. He helped deliver Carolina fans forever those 2 wins over Duke, and that alone is enough. And then there's so much more. So I really, really admire him, and I like him personally. And it was an honor covering him at Carolina, and he was very appreciative of that. And I hate seeing these guys go, man.
It's tough.
I hate seeing the roughest thing for me as a journalist, especially in basketball, because we talk to them so much more, is when you're in that locker room after a team gets eliminated from the NCAA tournament, and there's a couple of guys you want to have a little moment with and say goodbye to. So had our goodbye with Armando last year, which was very, very interesting, and had it with RJ today.
It's part of the business. If you're on the outside looking in, you don't really understand. But I mean, it's not a rooting interest side from your perspective. It's just you get to it's human being. It's to human being. I mean, it's just getting to know somebody and like him as a person and being like, I want to see this guy be successful in life. And I've known this guy for 5 years, and you hate to see him go. So it's just human being.
Let me add before we go, because I know this is a short drop. While the questions were asking guys about their immediate futures, I think some decisions will be made based on what Carolina goes out and does.
For sure.
I believe Carolina's going to be very proactive in the portal. And if you go, okay, they hate when I bring up the Duke thing, but you look at what Shire did last year. Shire made some moves that required some changes that maybe were uncomfortable at the time, but it made them better. It's the way the industry is now. It's a business. It's a transactional sport. Mm-hmm. Hubert said in October it wasn't, but he knows it is now. So because of that, you just can't bring in a guy and marry to him for 4 years, and you got to keep bringing him back. You got to re-recruit him every year, and they got to compensate him. So I think that they're going to go out and be very active, and they may bring in some guys that force the decisions. The other players that we didn't talk to, James Brown, for example. Ty Cloud's also gone. Zayden High's been working out. The understanding is he'll be back. So if you have Lubin and Washington and Brown and Zayden High, where's room for another big to say, oh, yeah, I want to go there? So a lot of this stuff has to be worked out. What's in the best interest for the kid? What's in the best interest for the program? And they have to be extremely honest conversations and maybe some uncomfortable conversations. That's all going to take place here in the next few days. Yep. They'll get home tonight. They'll probably have tomorrow off. Those conversations will start Monday because the portal opens Monday.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see some fairly quick activity on the roster front.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I would expect that too. And just to add on, just one thing to add on that before we go. I mean, you talked about being recruited over. I mean, that's what you do at big programs like this, man. It's a dog eat dog world out there now, man. And in order for Carolina to get back to the position they need to be, and for Hubert Davis to get back to the position, obviously he wants the program to be at, and not have these conversations every year about, from fans at least, about his job security and everything. He needs to get, next year's team back into the best place that he can possibly get it. And that requires you going out and recruiting over a few players that you might not think are what you need. Then that's just the nature of the beast at a program like North Carolina.
3 former ACC guys today outscored the Tar Heels in the first half from Ole Miss.
Yeah.
They got the cash. They went and got good players. I was surprised when Padula left. So I figured, well, he's getting all the shots he ever would want at Virginia Tech, but he wanted to win. Breakfield, Dre Davis. You've got to go out and bring guys in that can help you win, period. It's a different world now. Mm-hmm. So don't get too attached to some guys. Get a little bit more attached to others, and understand that this time next year, Carolina fans will feel a personal connection to some names no one's thinking about right now.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, I haven't talked about this yet, but bad 24 hours for the ACC, man. Good Lord. Just a horrific 24 hours. Just 3 for 3, and they all got. I mean, I know Carolina cut it short, but you look at those first half scores, all 3 of those games just got whooped, man. It's 3 teams that got whooped.
There's ball don't lie, score don't lie, results don't lie. This league is in serious trouble. Needs a lot of work. It needs leadership at the front. Where was Jim Phillips barking up about how these teams should be in the field? And you hear Sankey screaming and yelling how 14 teams in the SEC need to be in the tournament. He didn't step forward from Florida State. The league, ACC, has a serious leadership problem. Jim Phillips is a wonderful man, but has a serious leadership problem. It needs new leadership. It needs a ball buster. They need to go offer Sankey, like every school should pony up $1 million a year. Give Sankey be $17.5 million.
You'd be better for it in the long run. It might hurt fight your pockets, but better in the long run.
Oh yeah, they need to shake the tree in a big time way. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole now because that's all people respond about. But we will have a crap load of coverage, putting a bow on the season, diving into the portal. David Sisk is going to nail it like he always does. So he's already done some portal stuff. So.
Yeah, best in the business, man. Best in the business. And that's why you guys should be signed up for a premium subscription at TarHeelIllustrated.com. You can do it for just $8.33 a month. Links in the description below. But I think that's a good place to wrap this one up. Go follow us on Twitter, trying to hit 40K over there. Go like us, our channel on Facebook. We're going to be giving away some free subscriptions to TarHeelIllustrated.com here shortly. And make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell below. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another pressure of our daily drop. Appreciate everybody watching as they always do, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks.